Representative Boone, you asked for the citizenship question. Here it comes.
All right. I thought it'd be the first one. Go ahead.
An early version of your election integrity bill required proof of citizenship at the polls.
Yes.
Why should voters need to prove citizenship at the polls, and who should be responsible for verifying it?
Well, one, it's the law. You're supposed to be a citizen of the United States and of Idaho to vote, without a doubt. And as far as citizenship requirement, when my bill, the Secure Election Act, was presented, one thing about people were trying to confuse the bill and say that you had to have a citizen requirement every time you would go in and register to vote. So if you moved from Custer County to Kootenai County, you'd have to go in with a boatload of documents to prove who you are. No, that's upon initial registration. As far as citizenship goes, there was a bill that was moved by Representative Mitchell that would actually have your driver's license have an insignia or a stamp that stated whether you were a citizen or a non-citizen. And so that was something that moved through. Sadly, though, it wasn't mandatory. It was voluntary. Had it been mandatory, then that was something that could be easily seen at any election worker at the polls. But that didn't happen. So it was watered down with a mandatory requirement. However, as far as the citizenship goes, there's multiple ways that they can prove citizenship. It has to be proved in one time. And even if you come in from another state and you've proven citizenship there and you have a card such as this license I've just described that we have had passed by Representative Mitchell, well, then that card they could bring over from Indiana and use that card to go ahead and register to vote because they've already gone through the process of proving citizenship.
Clerk McGrain, same question to you.
Thank you, Ryan. I think this is a great example of just my experience. Up here, I'm the only candidate who's actually worked on these issues, who's worked with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to address citizenship issues. One of the biggest things is we don't have non-citizens voting in our elections, and any instance that we ever might, we're quick to pursue it. In Ada County, we've only ever had one instance where there's been an accusation of a non-citizen voting. And working with Homeland Security, out of the 300,000 registered voters that we have, we've narrowed it down to even 8 possible non-citizens. I think the most important message is that we address this and we work on it. We have safeguards in place. When someone registers to vote, not only do they need to show photo identification and proof of residence, but we actually verify against the Department of Motor Vehicles, Social Security Administration, vital statistics to make sure they're alive, and the Department of Corrections. In fact, the most common form of voter fraud that we see is felons voting. It's not people coming from Canada or elsewhere trying to influence our elections. We have a good system here in Idaho. We have safeguards in place across all 44 counties. And it is the role of the Secretary of State's office to ensure that that system is in place so the clerks can rely on it and make sure that our elections are secure. I think we have a good system in place. We have many safeguards. And, you know, one of the things when we talk about photo identification, we've even implemented tools so that people can scan their photo ID when they're right before they vote to look them up. It's improved the security of our system and made it more convenient for voters.
Representative Moon, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Thank you. So, Clerk McGrain, you just said that you know of no cases of a non-citizen voting in this election, and then you said you know of one, and then possibly 8 more. So, yes, there have been non-citizens who have voted in this election. In fact, just recently, I have an email thread from a couple that had turned in a person that they know who had voted illegally 3 times in an Ada County elections. And this was turned over to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State turned it over to you. Supposedly, it has gone to the Sheriff's Department. I don't know where it's gone from there. But as far as...
I'm happy to let you know and update you. And sorry for misspeaking initially. I think that's fair. I think one of the biggest things, this is a great example of, actually the first request came to me directly, and it's because people recognize our role in these elections. And in this case, we did pursue it. We've worked with the Sheriff's Office. First, the voter has been removed from the rolls. It's been investigated as a potential voter fraud case, and it has been passed on to the prosecutor's office in Ada County, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office for prosecution. I think it's a good example of elections integrity because we do take these things seriously. And both as clerk and as Secretary of State, I will continue to fight to protect our elections.
Ryan, the next question is for Senator Souza.
Oh, I don't get the same question?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, same question.
About voter ID?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I was going to remark that Clerk McGrain's answers to the voter ID issue have been mixed messages. And I had a voter ID bill as well. It was a comprehensive voter ID bill cleaning up our current laws, which have a mishmash of requirements for all the different ways you can register to vote and all the different ways you can vote. And we need consistency in our laws and clarity. Student IDs are not citizenship tested. They are not even valid for a lot of other reasons. They should not be used as a voting tool. But in Ada County, on their mobile voting truck, the students can use their student IDs to come out of college and register to vote and vote immediately. We have a problem with that because there's no control over what can be used. I would take student IDs off of that list immediately and require that the other IDs must have citizenship requirements on them in order to register to vote and to be shown at the polls. We don't need to have a different set of IDs. They can all be used. However, I will say that I think that we need to be clear on what our requirements are so that people know what to expect. There are fraudulent voters in our state, and Clerk McGrain constantly on the campaign trail is saying that we have no problem, everything is just fine. We need to open our eyes and make sure we have a common sense answer to these situations.
Melissa, if I may.
I'll give you 15 seconds, and we really do have to move on.
I think one of the biggest things, this is misleading in terms of legislation. Do we need greater clarity? Absolutely. But is the legislature's role to determine our laws? As Secretary of State and a clerk, it's our job to execute them. And one of the reasons that the legislation you mentioned didn't pass is because it specifically made it difficult for the military to vote. If we're going to ask our service members to serve and fight for us overseas, they should have the right to vote, especially if it's the governor that sent them there.
All right, and the
Melissa,
next question is
could I respond to that?
I'll give you 15 seconds to respond,
Thank
and
you.
then next question is from Kelsey.
My voter ID bill it took into consideration the UOCAVA and the military vote. And you were not there testifying on it. But Clerk McGrain likes to say that it's up to the legislature to pass the laws on elections, and that is absolutely true. But he also intervenes, and he intervenes in a way to stop the bills from being heard if he doesn't like them for political reasons.
We'll have to move on.